we shouldn't forget that we are also in a transfer window. Still loads of teams making moves to give themselves the best chance next season. I'm delighted to say, joining us, one of the hardest workers in the business right now is talkSPORT's US MNT and transfer correspondent Ben Jacobs. He's with us live from the States. Good morning, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Good morning, or good evening, of course, here in Seattle as we build up to USA against Belgium.
Tell us the Granit Xhaka latest, because it seems to have gone hot and cold and a lot of uncertainty of what's happening around that deal.
Yeah, so Chelsea made a bid of £8 million for Granit Xhaka. It was seen as derisory by Sunderland. It was rejected out of hand. And Sunderland's stance is really clear that the player is not for sale. And Chelsea have been banking on the fact that Xhaka pulls out a tactic like he did when he actually moved from Leverkusen to Sunderland, because back then the Leverkusen hierarchy had come out and said the player's not for sale at any price. But Xhaka pushed. This time around, Chelsea have had some initial encouragement, but now it seems that Xhaka's communicated to Sunderland he's happy to stay and he's got European football. And Sunderland's position throughout, even though Chelsea have been engaged in talks club to club and with the player, is they won't sell for any price. And as it stands, Chelsea have not made any further progress. So Sunderland's stance now is that Xhaka is going to stay, and Sunderland have informed Chelsea of that position. And as a consequence, maybe any further Chelsea bids, if they choose to proceed, will end up being redundant. So it's all quiet. The deal is off for now. Let's see whether we get a twist when Xhaka returns from the World Cup. But again, Sunderland believe that he's staying, period. The saga is over and the player is not for sale at any price.
If what Ben said sort of maintains, and Xhaka, he's, as we've just heard, he's told Sunderland, I'm going to stay, I've got European football. If that stays, I think fair play to him. Because he's become so important for Sunderland.
Absolutely, Max. I think it's a really valid point. And we don't see too much loyalty, do we?
Yeah.
We always accuse players of getting their heads turned and, the grass is greener and they go.
Yeah.
If he stayed at Sunderland, it showed how much loyalty he's shown to that football.
Absolutely. And as you say, Ben, we don't know what's going to happen when he comes back from the World Cup. We'll, of course, keep our eyes on that one. Can you give us the latest with Arsenal? We understand that, Trossard has got a move in the pipeline to Turkey. And, of course, Morgan Rogers, Aston Villa say worth £130 million is also on their radar.
Yeah, and you can understand why a club like Aston Villa would look at 160 million for Elliot Anderson. But even I would argue Anthony Gordon to Barcelona at 70 million with far less on his contract than Morgan Rogers. And we are in an inflated market. And then you add the 130 million euros price tag for Yan Diomande, even though that's not done yet with PSG. And we don't know if they're going to go that high. And this early in the window, Villa are really digging in. And yet those close to Morgan Rogers believed when he signed a new contract last year, which only added 1 year to an already long-term contract, their feeling was that 80 million or more might be enough to create an engagement. But now we're in an inflated market. Villa have got Champions League football. They do still need a big sale, but there is some money coming in. And as a consequence, as we enter for most clubs into the new financial year, even though some can choose to close the last financial year at the end of July, Villa may feel in a tougher negotiation position than perhaps when Rodgers signed that new deal. And now it's for Arsenal to determine, is that the grandstanding price or the actual price? And if it's the actual price, they might look at some other targets, including Bradley Barcola, Junior Krupi, even Julian Alvarez, despite the fact that the player wants Barcelona there. But make no mistake, Morgan Rogers is the top target as far as Arsenal are concerned in that position. And I expect Arsenal to bid. Chelsea are interested. Manchester United have looked. He's even been on PSG's radar, but they're focusing on Magnus Akliush and Yan Diomande. And then with Leandro Trossard, Besiktas have an agreement in principle with Arsenal for 18 million euros and a further 2 million in add-ons. And now they're sending a delegation right here to Seattle to talk personal terms with Trossard. The money is very good in Turkey, but Trossard hasn't finalised those personal terms or given an answer yet. And Besiktas are hoping that whether Belgium go through or go out, they can wrap up this deal in the United States of America. And yet those close to Trossard say he might want to wait either way until after the World Cup. So Besiktas are confident. They've got the fee sorted with Arsenal, but now they have to finalise personal terms with the player. And if he goes, that opens the door, the squad space, the wage space for Arsenal to then look for that starting left-sided winger or attacker.
I've got to ask you on this one because I saw Aidan Hackney play a good few times last year for Borough. Thought it was terrific. Probably one of the best midfielders in. Had a lot of injuries towards the end of the season for Borough. They certainly missed him about getting to the promotion with Borough. And look, Everton been busy with that deal, so a really good signing, I think, for David Moyes.
Yeah, that one is a done deal. It's a total package of 25 million, although that is including the add-ons. And Everton have also, as of last night, agreed a deal with Chelsea to sign Tyrique George permanently as well. George, you may remember, was on loan with Everton. There was a £25 million option to buy. Everton tried to shave a bit off that and succeeded. The final fee there, according to my information, is £18 million fixed, and a further 6 million in add-ons, and then there is a 50% sell-on clause, 1.5 that is, for Chelsea. So if Tyrique George continues this development and does well for Everton and was to get another move, then Chelsea might feel they can go above that original 25 million option to buy if you include the sell-on. So Hayden Hackney and Tyrique George both joining Everton, and my understanding is they will still look at the market for potential central midfielders and fullbacks as well before the window shuts.
Ben, I've got a text here from Roger from Mansfield. He says he's a Liverpool fan. He wants them to buy that young 17-year-old Mexican player, Gilberto Mora, who, of course, has been hitting the headlines, looks like a wonderful young talent. Have you heard anything about him? Because he's been performing so well, obviously, on the world stage.
Yeah, he has. Obviously, Liverpool's perspective with all of these kind of deals is they don't make impulsive decisions off the World Cup. So if they move in that direction, is basically because they were scouting the player long before they announced themselves on the world stage. At the moment, my information is that Liverpool have scouted Mora like many top European clubs. We'll have to wait and see how that develops, but there's no bid or anything advanced at this stage. But he's certainly a player that Liverpool and Bayern Munich and Manchester City and actually Leeds United as well over the course of the last 12 to 18 months have been keeping a very close eye on. But Liverpool's priority is to replace Mo Salah. So Victor Munoz has come in and now they want to add another attacker. And if PSG succeed with Yan Diomande, and he's already agreed a 5-year contract with PSG, but if they get a club-to-club deal with Leipzig, and or if Magnus Akliouche also arrives, because PSG want to try and get both players, suddenly Bradley Barcola and Liverpool could develop, and Arsenal have looked at the player as well. So PSG, if you ask them today, will say not for sale. But if you ask them tomorrow and Akliouche and or Diomande arrive, suddenly maybe a different scenario, especially in light of the fact that it's an impasse in contract talks between Barcola and PSG. So the position of PSG today on Barcola versus towards the end of the window may change, and Liverpool could be there. But there's other players as well. Matthias Fernandez Pardo, Syed Al-Mala, Yankuba Minter, all profiles that Liverpool have looked at. And keep an eye on central midfield as well, because that might be another area where Liverpool choose to strengthen.
Ben, thank you so much for your time and giving us the rundown on all the latest USA and transfers. We'll speak to you soon, mate.
Cheers, Ben. Bye-bye.